us the most prosperous, the richest, the wealthiest, and safest two countries in the world. We have a lot of sectors that we could support the U.S., and we do on a daily basis. I just think we're stronger together, and that's the message we're sending out across the U.S.
As a bargaining chip. Now, according to the CBC, of course, the broadcast network in Canada, senior officials in Ottawa are considering putting retaliatory tariffs, if Trump does move forward with imposing them, on steel products produced in Michigan and Pennsylvania and orange juice from Florida as a way to send a message to Trump. Do you believe that officials in Canada will target those states that also happen to be critical to Republicans?
We have no choice. And no one wins in these tariff wars. No one wins in these trade wars. The only people that win is China. They're the only people that win, not Americans, not Canadians. So, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Some call it a brewing storm. Others see it as a colossal act of self-sabotage. In reality, the escalating tension between Canada and the U.S. is looking less like a policy debate and more like a reckless collision course that could blow up in both nations' faces. Cynics insist it's driven by vanity and populist chest-thumping, an attempt by leaders to score points with voters rather than craft intelligent economic strategies. The real kicker, while these supposed allies hurl insults and threaten tariffs, China is quietly sitting back, grinning from ear to ear, watching two North American neighbors bash each other into submission. It's an absurd spectacle. Politicians in one of the world's most stable regions flirting with all-out economic warfare, offering Beijing a prime opportunity to tighten its grip on global commerce. Critics are right to call this short-sighted policymaking a borderline betrayal of national interests. Yet decision-makers keep doubling down, waving their flags and pretending to be tough on trade. The question is, how far will these leaders go to feed their political egos before they wake up and realize they've invited a much bigger, more strategic rival to feast on the aftermath? Stay with us till the end. Hello, and welcome back to Innovative Check YouTube channel, where we delve into the innovative and transformative projects changing our world. If you're new to the channel and enjoy learning about innovation stories around the world, you've come to the right place. Please subscribe, like, and comment to help boost our videos on YouTube. In the realm of diplomatic maneuvering between neighboring nations, there is a lurking sense that any bitter dispute will ultimately give a third party the edge. A notable example of this dynamic is unfolding between Canada and the U.S., where officials are sparring over trade threats and retaliatory measures, all while China quietly stands to gain from the fallout. This tension has escalated to a point where top politicians in Canada feel compelled to deliver their arguments directly to the highest ranks of the U.S. government. Such urgency underscores the belief that turning two friendly neighbors into economic adversaries inadvertently grants China an enormous strategic advantage, particularly in areas such as critical minerals, energy resources, and advanced technology supply chains. Doug Ford, who presides over the most populous province in Canada, has been vocal about forging a new balance with the U.S. to accommodate American needs for valuable mineral resources, materials that are essential to defense, renewable energy production, and other high-stakes industries where U.S. dominance has been eclipsed by China. For years, China methodically positioned itself as a leader in minerals critical to modern manufacturing, including the automotive and electronic sectors. Observers say this slow but deliberate approach has resulted in Western powers playing catch-up. While the U.S. and Canada boast strong ties, the ripple effects of the U.S. administration's protectionist rhetoric are sowing confusion and fear that both sides may soon spiral into a disruptive trade war. A number of decision makers are convinced that if trade barriers go up between Canada and the U.S., jobs will be lost on both sides of the border. In Ontario alone, the automotive and manufacturing sectors are deeply entwined with facilities in Michigan, Ohio, and the broader American Midwest. There is a seamless flow of goods back and forth, with car parts crossing the border multiple times before a vehicle is finally assembled. Disrupting this arrangement would create a significant strain on supply chains that have functioned for decades. And if costs spike in the aftermath, multinational firms may inevitably pivot to other sources, possibly involving Chinese-made components, thereby strengthening Beijing's economic foothold. The saber rattling in Washington, fueled by promises to impose tariffs on various imports, has led Canadian leaders to contemplate their own countermeasures. There is talk of restricting or taxing exports of vital commodities that the U.S. cannot easily replace in the short term, such as certain metals and minerals used extensively in the defense sector. While few actually desire a tit-for-tat confrontation, some officials argue that Canada cannot simply stand by if American policies damage their industries. This viewpoint is rooted in a sense of national dignity and economic necessity, as large swaths of the Canadian workforce depend on robust cross-border commerce. Just a quick reminder to hit the like bit below. YouTube has been restricting my videos a lot recently because of bots, so your like does help out this video massively in terms of the algorithm in YouTube. At the heart of the matter lies a long-standing question about how much leverage each country genuinely possesses. Canada is an important supplier of oil, natural gas, and electricity to the U.S., and these resources flow across the boundary at enormous scale every day. Premier Ford created waves when he broached the possibility of scaling back these energy exports if the dispute deepened. Since the U.S. imports so much Canadian energy, pulling back on that supply would be no small inconvenience for American buyers, particularly in key states that rely on steady streams of Canadian crude. Yet critics claim such measures could also backfire on Canadian producers, who rely on the U.S. market and do not necessarily have immediate alternatives to redirect their supply. These evolving conversations highlight the fact that while both neighbors have long enjoyed one of the largest bilateral trade relationships in the world, it is not immune to upheaval. The threat of tariffs, along with public verbal spats, can destabilize even the most established partnerships. Moreover, once multinational companies sense serious friction, they often look elsewhere for a more reliable business climate. Given the global clout of China, which has extended its commercial reach into every corner of the planet, the possibility that trade wars in North America might boost China's global standing is far from far-fetched. This scenario aligns with widespread analysis pointing to an ever-growing Chinese economic sphere of influence, spanning everything from rare earth elements to the manufacturing of electronics, and even advanced microchips from suppliers like TSMC and technology from ASML. Against that backdrop, the Canadian government's strategy involves carefully weighing how best to respond to unpredictable moves by the U.S. administration. Political leaders in Ottawa are mindful that overreaction could harm their own industries, yet failing to respond with a proportional measure could encourage more aggressive measures from the U.S. side. Balancing these conflicting pressures is no easy task. Politically, no leader wants to appear weak, but at the same time, nobody wishes to spark a full-blown trade war. The complexities grow as each Canadian province has distinct economic pillars. Some are heavily reliant on oil and gas, while others prioritize automotive manufacturing or even seafood. A blanket federal strategy may not address these unique needs. Consequently, different regions within Canada are emphasizing varied approaches on how to negotiate or at least manage the swirl of threats coming from the U.S. At the center of this storm sits the question of critical minerals. Certain elements, such as gallium and germanium, have become emblematic of China's capacity to rattle global technology chains with export controls. These metals might be unfamiliar to most consumers, but who has actually paid the most electricity bills and stored the most manpower? And these yet more practical or reduced-cost agents have within the past decade, yet they are indispensable for everything from semiconductors to military hardware. Canada, with its rich geological deposits, sees itself as a robust alternative source for the U.S. market, which is eager to diversify away from China. But the moment the U.S. signals a readiness to impose sweeping import duties on Canadian goods, the entire notion of a North American mineral alliance is thrown into disarray. Observers caution that pushing Canada away might even nudge it toward forming deeper economic ties with other partners, potentially even boosting trade directly with China, a prospect that would run counter to Washington's strategic interests. If you are enjoying this video so far, please don't forget to subscribe, share the video, and comment. There is also a sense among some Canadians that the U.S. leader's public remarks about Canada being the 51st state only serve to inflame an already tense situation. These comments, along with wildly inaccurate claims about the U.S. subsidizing Canada by huge sums of money, create political headaches for Canadian officials who feel compelled to respond, if only to maintain national pride. A barrage of antagonistic statements has historically proven difficult to ignore, as public sentiment can shift quickly. Politicians often fear that perceived slights could galvanize a nationalistic backlash, making diplomatic solutions harder to achieve in the long run. Still, the crux of the argument put forth by figures such as Premier Ford is that not only does an escalating confrontation hurt both the US and Canada, but it also hands China a golden opportunity to fill the gaps. If North American production lines become more costly or complicated, importers and manufacturers around the globe will look for the path of least resistance. China, with its massive industrial base and capacity for rapid scaling, stands poised to gain from chaos elsewhere. The Chinese government has decades of experience in capitalizing on trade disruptions, having carefully positioned its manufacturing giants to step in whenever supply chain bottlenecks appear outside its borders. This is a reality that many Canadian and American stakeholders are painfully aware of, yet they are caught in the political crossfire that prioritizes short-term rhetoric over long-term strategy. And so, as tempers flare and leaders exchange warnings, diplomats and analysts are left raising alarms that the region's biggest competitor, China, may profit from all of this posturing, according to Adams, a senior administrator overseeing cross-border trade issues. If we let disagreements spiral, we open the door for Chinese firms to scoop up market share. The more friction we generate, the more advantage we hand to big. Comments like these highlight a broader nervousness that is creeping into the North American policy circuit. Each new layer of retaliatory talk, each fresh rumor of tariffs or energy cutoffs, drives home the realization that no side comes out ahead if this standoff grows more extreme. Your subscriptions and likes motivate us to generate more content, so please keep supporting us. Check out this video showing on your screen right now, and I will see you on the other side.